Yeah, it's an interesting time. I just feel like comedy is on this weird. Well, it's the boom, the wave is dying down, the boom is dying down. There was a huge boom after. Um, I was part of it, right?
Comedy Simp, the podcast you can't resist. Stephen Michael James, the host you won't wanna miss. From Seattle to the world, his humor will persist. Join the fun, get ready to enlist.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Comedy Simp Podcast, and I am your host, Stephen Michael James. You can follow me as Stephen MJ Comedy or Stephen Michael James on TikTok, but don't forget to like and subscribe. And this is going to be a solo episode, so buckle up, people, because the Simp has a lot to talk about today. First of all, I'm not really feeling that good. I'll be honest with you guys. I think I'm coming down with a little something. I had a fever of 100 and something degrees today, 100.5, but I still worked. I still worked because that's what we do when we're responsible adults. No, I wish I could have stayed home, but yeah, no, it's. I think it's that time of the year. It's that time of the year where California people like us, we're not used to all the mold and the moisture and all that, and starts to affect our nasal cavities in a way that's not so pleasant. And so, yeah, this is seasonal allergies for me. Well, I guess I pretty much always have allergies here in Washington. I don't know. It's just the way it is. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I've always had these allergies since I've been up here. I don't know if it's, like I said, I don't know if it's the weather or pollen, trees, whatever it is. It's stuff that I didn't grow up accustomed to. So I seem to always have like a stuffed nose, runny nose, sneezing. I get into these crazy sneeze fits sometimes. It's insane. Like I will. I don't know if I have some dairy or like too much caffeine, I just like start sneezing to the point where I can like hurt myself if I don't calm down. But I'm not the only one that has these allergies. Shout out to Adam Tiller, one of my favorite comics. Also, we exchange ideas on how to deal with these allergies. Currently I'm working with some Zyrtec and Flonase, and also had to get some Sudafed today, just because pseudoephedrine. If you're old enough, people, if you're over 21 and you have an ID, you should get some before Trump takes it away, before RFK takes it away, because it's the only thing that seems to clear up my sinuses. I don't know if you guys know this too. Like, I believe Claritin is just like Sudafed and Zyrtec, combined. So, food for thought. Isn't that a fun term? Food for thought. So let's see. This last weekend was busy. This last weekend was crazy. The last time you guys heard from me, I was here with Rob. It was post 9/11. It was post the Charlie Kirk thing. We were talking a little bit about comedy, but this is Comedy Simp. I'm here to talk about comedy, and so I have some other stuff I'll talk about later. But right now, let's talk about the Shanghai Room. The Shanghai Room is no longer doing comedy as of tonight. I'm recording this. Well, actually, that was last night. This is Monday now. So, yeah, I'm recording this. The weekend has passed. The Shanghai Room. So, those of you who aren't aware, the Shanghai Room is a bar in this restaurant called the North Star Diner. Or not North Star, something like that. The North Star Shanghai Diner, something. And it's a very interesting place, to say the least. It definitely has the vibes that maybe it wasn't. Some people tell me it used to be a strip club. I mean, unless there's a strip club where there's a tiny little stage and only one woman dances at a time, that's the only way I could see this being a strip club. But the way the Shanghai Room is set up is 2 big rooms. The first one is the restaurant. I've never even been in that side, but it's always open. And then the other side is the side on the right, and that's the bar. And the bar is split into 2 halves. So you have a bar that goes all the way down the middle of the room, kind of like... I don't know. Cheers isn't the best description, the best comparison, but it's like a round bar where you can kind of go on all sides to get drinks. You know, there's bar seats, you know, stools on each side, and so on the left you have a bunch of booths, some tables, and a big screen. And the big screen is usually playing videos. It's usually playing movies on game night. It's playing the karaoke. They have a camera in there. And so the other side of the room, the other side of the bar, that's the stage area. And so there's a little stage and there are more booths. And there's always a camera running. And so the camera, wherever that is, it's like on the ceiling or something, is pointed at the stage. And occasionally on the left side of the room, they will be showing videos of people on stage, whether it's open mic comedy or karaoke or whatever. But the Shanghai Room, what can I say? There's so much to say. You know, first of all, nobody bombs at the Shanghai Room. That is the quote, the slogan, the tagline that Rob came up with, Rob Conroy, back in the day, and everyone started copying it. But the Shanghai was the second place I ever did comedy, like outside of the first place. You know, everybody knows the first time I did comedy, I was up in Everett, Washington at Tony V's. I went for a few months, finally got up the courage to get up on stage. Now, the Shanghai Room was the second place I did comedy. And I don't really remember much about the first time I was there. I just know I was a little intimidated just because I was very new. I had never been to this bar before. And this bar, I mean, like at the time, the Shanghai Room had like, they still do, but, they had the paper lanterns. They have like, those drop ceilings, those office drop ceilings with the tiles. Well, it was like they had the frame for that, but no tiles. So it's just the empty frame. And then up there, you look in there and there's like a bunch of Christmas lights and some mirrors. And it's very, it feels like a cheap dive bar in Asia, and I've never been to Asia, but I've seen a lot of movies. And so it's kind of Big Trouble in Little China. It's not authentic Shanghai, but it's kind of mishmash. If somebody with autism and ADHD was to open up a bar in Shanghai, that's what the Shanghai Room would look like. So you got yourself a little stage. And at the time, there were like little windows behind the stage, and there's a patio. I guess there's a patio in the back. Never been there, and we'll get to that because I have something to say about that patio. But then it was like mirrored, and later on they got some red curtains. And then let's talk about the bathrooms. So the bathrooms, they are gender neutral now, but they weren't that way when I started. It was a men's and a women's. And I've never been into the women's side, but the men's is, a couple urinals, no wall in between the urinal. That's for all you people out there, all you boys and men and people who identify. If you're a little shy at the urinal, I just want to warn you, there's no wall there in between the urinals. So you better get yourself a nice diagonal stance if you don't want anybody checking out the goods. Sorry about that. I'm still a little sniffly. My Sudafed is worn off, but I'm not going to take a 12-hour at 9 o'clock because I barely, I barely slept last night. And then you have the stall of the Shanghai Room, which is, all I know is the only person I've ever known who's used that stall is Femi. And I don't know because I didn't watch him, but I just knew that he came out of there one time, and I just thought, oh wow, people really do shit in public. Like I was, because at Tony V's, they don't have a door on the stall, so that would be very awkward to see somebody in there. But teach their own. The Shanghai Room, and I had some interesting sets there. I went there. I probably went there like between 20 and 30 times. Like it wasn't one of my go-tos for long. In the very beginning, it was, I was new to comedy. It was a low stakes room, as my friend Zach Fisher would say, low stakes. I kind of learned how to be a comic. Shanghai was one of those places. Adam Tiller, who we talked about earlier, I remember 3 months into comedy, he was at the Shanghai, and he actually walked up to me and was really nice and talking to me and giving me advice and all that. And so, I always remember that. I mean, Adam is, it's because he was always nice to me when I was young. So I'm always going to be like Adam Tiller. He's the dude. He's the man. But yeah, now let's see. There was a lot of sets. I mean, I did a show there. Nick Cody, our friend, he was one of the hosts at the open mic at the Shanghai Room. There in Greenwood. He was one of the hosts, usually Saturday nights. So he spent a lot of time there, and he started producing his own shows. And his first shows were like at like the Vessel Tap House, maybe a couple other places, but he specifically started doing shows at the Shanghai Room, notably the Tapped Out Comedy, the Comedy Code Breakers, that kind of stuff. I remember one I did. It wasn't the first show I ever did, but it was maybe the first show I did this at the Shanghai, and it was called the Out of Left Field, and it was a kind of a sports themed comedy show, and it was a birthday for our friend Danny Trevor John, another comedian. He's like he was way into baseball and stuff like that, so he's a sports guy. So it was kind of a birthday show for him, and it was like the first time I met Keon, and all I know is I had a really good set. Within 6 to 8 months of just, bouncing around to different places, and specifically like Shanghai Room, I started to get better. Started to meet more people, just hanging out. I mean, so many people I met around there. I mean, Dino Dad, Noah Rubin, he was the first guy I knew about him, and he was really cool to me at Tony V's, but when I went to the Shanghai Room for the first time, it was probably like my third or fourth time ever doing comedy. And he said, I was like, oh, I'm not like a real comic like you guys. And he's all, oh, you showed up. You're a real comic. And so again, that's a nice thing that somebody said to me that I won't forget. And I don't forget. There was some other shows we did. There was what was the Comedy Code Breakers in October 23. That one was fun. And this is infamous. It's legendary. It was kind of messed up, but I did it anyways. I was added to that show last minute because this other comic, this female, Megan KD, was supposed to be on the show. And she dropped out because she had an issue with another comic on the lineup. This comic, everybody knows about him. He had some issues with a lot of other clubs and people, and don't need to go into that. But either way, she didn't like some sort of philosophy about Nick and what he was doing with his comedy show. She didn't want to be on it. He wanted to replace her with me, and I thought it would be funny if I pretended to be her. So I got this wig. I wore my glasses. I had a hat because she kind of wears like Vans type stuff. So, and I proceeded to just do like a roast all the other comics there, like PJ and Michael Aguilera and Chloe Lynch, people like that, and it was just probably the best Shanghai show. I mean, one of my best clips is I have this joke that's very offensive, and it was the first time I just destroyed the room, like everybody laughed, like every comic, every person, and that joke is never done. That joke is never done as well since. So, then we had some bad shows too. I mean, Nick had a show there. It was called like the Stone Cold Comedy Codebreakers show, and it was all comics and nobody else. And one of the comics that was there had a very bad time, and yeah, it was just it was not good. Additionally, they did ban Rob. They banned Rob from the Shanghai Room for some joke. He had some complaints about from some bystanders that were there, some people that weren't regular folks. And oftentimes what happens at these bar open mics, guys, is they happen at bars, and people who go to these bars don't even know the comedy's going on. And either they don't know comedy etiquette or they just don't care. And they're just going to talk over you. They're going to order their drinks. They're going to play pool. That was one of the frustrating things about Whiskey Mile. But Shanghai has been going for a long time. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for, I guess, 4 years. It started about a year before I started. And so many people have done features there. I did a feature there. I did a Sunday night feature there. It was really fun. I got this where is it? It's in here somewhere. Yeah. Look at this. I got this trophy here. The Healthy Biome Award, Shanghai Comedy, June 2nd, 2024. So the only trophy I've ever gotten in my life. And even though it is a soccer trophy, it's the thought that counts. So, yeah. And, but it's not to say that the place hasn't had its own problems as well. I mean, they ban people. They've had people complain about specific language. They've definitely had people push buttons. I don't know if anybody's got any fights on stage, but definitely some pushing and arguments outside. And literally somebody was shot and unalived, out front. It wasn't a comic. It was totally unrelated, but it just wasn't a nice time in Seattle history. But I don't know what happened. Who's to say? This is a weird time in comedy, and this is when I can slowly kind of move into my next topic with the state of comedy and all that, because this is the Comedy Simp. This is the podcast. I mean, I love comedy. This the reason I started doing it is because I love it. So obviously I know what's kind of going on in the world, and so we'll get to that. But it's it's an interesting time because I don't think comedy has ever been a big thing, like a big money maker, especially in Seattle. And there's levels to open mic. Okay, let's break this down to the people. I know I have a few people that listen to watch this that are not comedians, or maybe they're brand new, or maybe they're thinking about getting into it. And so let me break down the different levels. First of all, you have what's called the open mic level, and that's pretty much what I'm on. And this is level 1, and this is I think probably, I haven't been to the other levels yet. This isn't Scientology, but I feel like it's the hardest one to break out of because nobody takes you seriously. Until you've done something worthwhile, nobody cares. You're just an open micer. Because what I've seen in the last couple of years is the same thing that my peers and the people older than me have seen, is that a lot of people start up and then they quit for whatever reasons, either the frustration, they quit because of personal reasons, or whatever. There could be a a myriad of reasons, right? Who knows? But it's like, why do they want to get close to you if you're going to be gone? Kind of. That's kind of like what it all boils down to, right? Is they're like, I don't want to be cool with this guy because he's not going to be around. So it's almost as if like the whole thing is a test. Like you got to stick around for a few years just for them to even remember you. Now that's not to say I'm that way. I mean, I feel like my personality, I've made quite an impact on certain people. But going back to the levels here. So level 1 is the open mic where you either go to these bars, like I said earlier, they're bars where, they either don't know that comedy's going on or they don't care. They usually don't pay the host. You're lucky to even have a stage. And that was what Whiskey Mile was. Whiskey Mile was that. I mean, they didn't pay us to do anything. I slipped at $20 to a couple people here or there just because they drove pretty far. But that was me, man. That wasn't the bar owner. In fact, when we did our show there, like he just kind of made me feel a little weird when we were charging tickets because I don't know, maybe he thought we were hurting his business. And it's like, well, why agree to the comedy show? But it's all water under the bridge anyways. The Whiskey Mile is gone. But that's, Tony V's, Whiskey Mile, the local 907 in Renton. These are bars that have open mics. And then also on the flip side, the other open mic level 1 comedian is somebody who goes to the comedy clubs, like a Club Comedy or Tacoma Comedy Club, signs up and gets randomly put on a list, and shows up and does their set, and nothing happens, and then they do it again and again and again in hopes that maybe one day somebody might notice them. So yeah, and then you could take a comedy class at like like Laughs Comedy Club or Tacoma, and maybe get some more stage time. But ultimately, you're still just an open micer. Now, there is level 2. Now, level 2 is a weird, I don't know, what would you call it? Like host feature would be like the best way to describe level 2, and that's somebody who, they still go to open mics, but they're regularly doing shows or hosting at the open mic. Because that's a little bit above being at the open mic, is when you're invited to be a host, because like Tacoma, they pay you, I don't know about Club Comedy, I don't know about Emerald City, but, Tacoma, they pay you to be a host. So that, whoa, sorry, Dr. Pepper, damn. So they trust that you're going to do a good job. They trust that that you're not going to derail the show and throw a bunch of F slurs, because I mean that is, that's a top tier club. I mean, that's top of the line. That's where every comic wants to be. And those are people that are producing shows. Maybe they headline their own show, like at a brewery, or a cider house, a tap house, an Elks Lodge. And also on the flip side, they are working the clubs. They're getting invited to like the local showcases. They're getting host jobs, host work for people who come into town. Maybe some of them even get to graduate to be features for people who come into town. And that's like level 2. And then level 3 is like feature / headliner. And those are people that never go to open mics. I'm talking to you, Greg Beachler. No, he never watches this. But, Adam goes to open mics. Who doesn't go to open mics? I don't know. There's some people, people that regular headliners, stuff like that. But these are people that are usually always featuring, always on shows, headlining local shows, and then also going on the road. That's level 3. And then level 4 is obviously that's like, that's success. Level 4 is you're making a very good living with comedy, and it doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon. That's like Nate Jackson. Nate Jackson is a level 4 comic. He's pretty much the only one in this area that I feel, because he's killing it right now. I mean, the dude's everywhere. So with that, I mean, that's a roundabout way of me coming back to Shanghai and saying that, the level 1 comics, this is a great. There's specific rooms for them, and it's sad that this one is going, because Whiskey Mile was one, and now this is one. So this is just another place that is no longer going to be there. There wasn't, as far as I know, no open mics on Saturday nights. Very rare, not a lot of open mics on Sunday nights. So to the people out there that are young, that don't have, significant others or kids, I mean, and they got nothing to do on a Saturday night, go to the Shanghai Room, go do your set, and then you can go over to, at the time, Comedy Bar, and go see a show for free, something like that. But Shanghai, they decided they're no longer doing comedy. They just decided it's just not worth it anymore. I could say there were some nights that comedy brought a lot of people, and then there were definitely some nights that it didn't. But what else is going to bring people besides comedy? I don't think there was people being scared away from the Shanghai Room because of comedy. It's just, first of all, we're living in weird times. 2025, it's like a lot of stuff's going on in the world, a lot of very stressful things. The economy is not great. People aren't making money. It's hard to find jobs. And so, what are they going to want to? They're not going to want to spend their money, all the time. They're not going to want to carelessly spend their money. I don't even know where I was going with that rant. I was just very excited about what I was saying there. Shanghai Room is closing, and no more comedy for them, and they just decided it's just no longer feasible. Now, Noah, Dino Dad, the guy who started the whole thing, he told everybody to come out this weekend. It was the last weekend. Friday, they were going to have their last kind of hurrah, last party at the Shanghai. And so they had a big show, probably like 30 comics or something like that. I was on it, of course. And we all did like 3-minute sets. And, it's tough. It's tough with this podcast because people are so intimidated by like lights for some reason. Like, there was this time I was doing a podcast with Tony Cardoza down in Tacoma. We're at this bar, and we turn on a light, and like instantly this lady's like, "Oh, you can't do this." Okay, cool. And then I turn the light off, and we sit there and we still talk for like another 20, 25 minutes. I'm like, look at this. There's no difference between what we're doing now and what we're just doing other than the light, And then, I like trying to do as many podcasts as I can. Whiskey Mile was cool and great to me because I could bring my stuff there. They would allow me to film and record there. But not any other time I try to ask, people are weird. They act a little like, I remember in the beginning I was talking to like Gavin saying, "Hey, Tacoma, you think they'll let me do my podcast there?" But, he's like, "I don't know," so. I guess I gotta, get closer to the people who run stuff and see if it's cool. So I was going to do my podcast there at the Shanghai, but it just wasn't going to work. I saw that they had this back patio that had been there the whole time. I've never been to this back patio. In fact, Robbie Schrader was like, "You could probably do it back there." And so I walked back there and it's locked. So I was like, okay, well, I am not even going to bother. I'm not going to ask anybody. There was a lot of people at Shanghai. And I was like, you know what? It's whatever. I'm just going to do a podcast by myself because I know how to fill time. So yeah, that's it, man. We went to Shanghai. It was fun. Did a set. Saw a bunch of people hadn't seen in a while. Sage Cameron, Keon Larry. Who else was there? I mean, Drew James was there. Oh man, so many people. Lil Jeezy Weezy. The list goes on and on, you know. But yeah, it's cool. There's a couple people I hadn't seen, like Sage, I hadn't seen for a very long time. So good to see him up there doing it again. But RIP Shanghai Room. And now there's a new one that's going to be happening on Fridays on Aurora somewhere. I don't know what it's called. Like, I think it's called the Hidden Door, but don't quote me on that. Yeah, so there's comedy lives on. Maybe not all weekend, but definitely on Fridays. So yeah, that was Friday. Fun time. Saturday was went to a trampoline park for the 100th time. Famously, about a year ago, I rolled my ankle at the same trampoline park, and it swelled up to the size of a golf ball. It was literally like a day before the Emo's Not Funny show, and it had fun. But this time, took it easy. Stayed at I was feeling kind of sick, actually. That was kind of like when I started feeling sick. I had some cake. So my daughter's friend celebrating her birthday. They had some cake, and it was like a vanilla cake with like strawberry like icing in the middle. It was good, but like literally instantly my nose just started running like crazy, and I just had to start blowing my nose. So that's what I said earlier with like the dairy. I don't know what it is. I'm going to be going to the doctor next month, and I'm going to ask if I can get some sort of an allergy test, because I mean, I'm tired of this, man. I'm 40 years old, tired of the Sudafed and the Zyrtec and the Flonase and the nasal rinse and this and the that and the Allegra, and I just want to breathe. I was saying earlier, state of comedy. I don't even know how long I've been going. But you guys heard about this, what is it called? The Riyadh Comedy Festival. Lisa, you heard of this? The Riyadh Comedy Festival?
Yeah.
Okay. So, if any of you guys haven't heard about this, this is an international comedy festival that takes place from September 26th to October 9th at Boulevard City in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The festival features many high-profile comedians in a variety of comedy styles, such as stand-up, satire, sketch, and improv. These are the people that are scheduled to be on this. This is a comedy festival, the very first comedy festival in Saudi Arabia, and people are mad. People are mad because they feel like the government of Saudi Arabia is, they're very anti-human, you know, there's no laws about free speech, and there's a Sharia law and all sorts of crazy stuff, you know, that Saudi Arabia is not a good place, apparently. I mean, I don't know. I'm not educated enough to make that decision, but supposedly Saudi Arabia, not a good place. And so people are not happy about this comedy festival. And these are some of the people that, you know, a lot of people are saying they are taking blood money. They are taking money that they know comes from bad regimes and bad governments. And it's kind of like, you know, imagine doing a comedy festival in Israel right now. Probably not the best move. So, but this is in Saudi Arabia. And these are the people that are on this, all right? Mo Amer, never heard of him. Aziz Ansari, of course, know him. Wayne Brady. Wayne Brady, which is, I'm so upset that Wayne Brady is on this. Hannibal Buress, Bill Burr, Jimmy Carr, Dave Chappelle, Louis C.K., Whitney Cummings, Pete Davidson, Chris DiStefano, Omid Djalili, Zarna Garg, Ben Hart, Kevin Hart, Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy, Jim Jeffries, Jamoyan, Maz Jabroni, Jessica Kirson, Joe Coy, Bobby Lee, Sebastian Maniscalco, Sam Morrill, Mark Norman, Russell Peters, Jeff Ross, Sugar Sammy, Andrew Santino, Andrew Schultz, Tom Segura, Ali Sadiq, Ari Spears, Chris Tucker, and Jack Whitehall. Tim Dillon, who was originally intending to participate in the festival, was removed from the list of performers due to jokes he made on his podcast about slavery in Saudi Arabia. So, yeah, I don't know. This is it's pretty wild. I mean, there's different ways of thinking about it. I listened to a podcast recently with Pete Davidson was on Theo Vaughn's podcast, and he basically was just like, I don't care. I'm just getting the money. It doesn't mean anything to me. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see how much backlash this is. You know, I feel like more than ever, people don't, it's hard to separate the art from the artist these days, you know? Like, I mean, personally, for me, there's some comics that I think are very funny, but they're incredibly like racist, you know, misogynistic, you know, like that kind of like, I'm not talking about like Kill Tony people. Like, no, I'm talking about like people that are way worse, people that are beyond that. Like, yeah, those people, like, yeah, I'm not down with that whatsoever. But this is I don't know. I don't know what to, it's kind of hard. Let's unpack it together. What do we think about it? Well, on one hand, you have comedians that, you know, they're trying to, I know some of the big ones, they have entire staffs. You know, they don't just have like their family and their houses. They have like people that they have to pay. And so, you know, when you're a big star like that, you know, you gotta get that bag, you know, you gotta make that money. Especially if you're trying to take care of your people. You know, some people say, well, they're rich enough. How do you know how rich they are? You know, some of these people that you think are super rich, they might just be barely above where you are. You know, a lot of it is a dog and pony show, as they say. But on the other hand, it's you know, it's not great. It's not a good look when you are performing, when you're making money, when you're being paid by somebody who knowingly has committed some really bad things, you know? It's like, imagine if I was to do a comedy show for the KKK. Like, I don't think so. You know, I wouldn't want to do that. Like, that's just, I don't care how much they're paying. I mean, like, but how do we know? What would you do? I mean, what is the line? You know, like, how much money could they give you to change your mind? Because it's easy to sit back in your garage and say, oh, that's beyond my beliefs. I would never do it. But then I'm sitting there and they're like, okay, so here's the deal, man. You come out here. We're going to pay for your flights. We're going to pay for your hotels. We're going to pay for your meals. You know, there's certain things that we don't want you to joke about, but you're pretty much going to perform for, you know, like an hour, 15 minutes through 2 nights. And we're going to pay you like $350,000. It's like, whoa, you know, like I got a special needs kid. I got a house that needs to be paid off. You know, that's a lot of money. Like that's, you know, it's what people think is a lot of money is so crazy to me because like I see the houses and the cars and the Kardashians and the this and the that, Hollywood, but I also just see like some random dude in Issaquah who's got an $8 million house, like it's all, I don't know. It's just, you wouldn't know until you put yourself in those shoes, imagine it's one of those things like, all right, you can guarantee, there's a movie called The Box. There's a movie called The Box made by Richard Kelly. Came out in the 2000s. If you guys remember Richard Kelly, he did Donnie Darko famously, and then he did another movie called Southland Tales, which was the first movie that The Rock called himself Dwayne Johnson officially. But so this movie, The Box, is made by Richard Kelly, and then the concept of The Box is these people get like a mysterious box in the mail, and it has a button in it. And if they press this button, they get fortune, they get taken care of. The caveat is somebody will lose their life when they press this button. They don't know who's going to lose their life, but just somebody will lose their life. So they'll have to live with the fact that they have taken somebody's life, but they can be taken care of with, financially for the rest of their life. So it's a pretty interesting quinky dink, I mean, it's easy. Like I said, it's easy to say when you're behind a podcast screen, but when you're there and the check's in front of you, I don't know. Especially when it's like, there's a lot of factors. It's like you're performing for other Americans. It's not really a Saudi crowd. It's Americans that live over there. It's also, quite frankly, kind of racist to just, single out the entire country. When I imagine there's probably a lot of great people that live there. We're more like, if you're going to talk about Saudi Arabia and this and that, you should say like the regime, the people in charge, not just necessarily lump the whole country together. Because it's like, people are like, oh, I'm surprised Pete Davidson is going there. His dad died in 9/11. Well, hey, people, 9/11 was committed by Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan, last I checked. I mean, now, if you guys want to comment and say, oh, Saudi Arabia paid for it, that's fine. You could do that. But as far as I know, Saudi Arabia they weren't responsible for 9/11. But we all know who really was, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's an interesting time. I just feel like comedy is on this weird, well, it's the boom, the wave is dying down, the boom is dying down. There was a huge boom after COVID. I was part of it, right? There's been a few comedy booms. The original one was like in the 70s, early 80s. And then it kind of lasted until like the early 90s when people were getting the sitcoms, the Home Improvements and Roseanne and all that. But then comedy kind of just became what I feel like where it's going now is where it was in the late 90s. Like it was still around. You had Comedy Central, a lot of stand-up, but it wasn't in the vernacular of the mainstream, It wasn't, just for example, like my dad knows who Joe Rogan is, right? He wouldn't have known who he was, 20 years ago. I knew who he was because I used to watch news radio, but I could just kind of tell you like how these comedians started to get into my algorithm because I wasn't really a stand-up guy. Like I loved Dave Attell when I was younger, and then a few years later, I loved Doug Benson a lot. I loved his documentaries and stuff. But like I started to get these videos sent to me of like Tom Segura hanging out with like Stone Cold Steve Austin, things like that. And then it was right around the COVID time. I had been listening to podcasts for a while, but I mostly, like for Joe Rogan example, I would listen to like the episodes with celebrities, with like Dan Aykroyd or, this actor, that actor. I wasn't really into the comedy and into the comedians, but it slowly started to change a little bit. Especially found out about like Kill Tony and just the world of getting into comedy, I think was alluring to me, like the finding out like it's its own scene, it's its own underground society, and there's unwritten rules, and there's ways to get ahead, and there's ways to burn bridges, and it's been crazy, but it's a weird time, it's I mean, you have just locally, you have the Whiskey Mile closing down, Shanghai closing down, and open mics closing down is nothing new. I happen to know there is a comedy club that is probably not going to be around next year. I can't tell you which one, but you could probably guess. And I happen to know that there are other big name comedians that come around that can't sell tickets. So, it's a tough climate. It's a weird climate with the left and the right and the violence, a lot of political violence. There's a lot of the stuff going on with ICE and the government, a lot of fear, stuff going on overseas. There's just a lot, we're just being bombarded all the time with this insanity, just this violence after craziness. And it's not an environment to be funny in. It's not. So you have that, and then add to the fact that all these people are mad that these comedians are not exactly who they thought they were, I mean, bring in people like Trump and J.D. Vance on their podcasts and, showing up at Republican conventions and not speaking out against these bad things that are happening. There's very few of them. And so back to what I was saying, the art and the artist, it's like, for me, I think at this point, I would rather just support somebody that would believe in the same thing that I did. Like I can't support somebody who believes in just mass deportations for just because they weren't born here. Like that's bullshit. I don't want to support like people that just throw off the F slur for no reason. Like, I think it's acceptable every once in a while in a specific context, especially if like a gay person says it or if a gay person is okay with it. But I don't think that just throwing it around willy-nilly for no reason is a good idea. Because I have friends that are gay, friends that are like non-binary, trans, and I'll admit, even it was hard for me to accept it in the beginning too, but it's just the way it is. I mean, it's pretty, I just know that I would be upset if somebody tried to stop me from being who I wanted to be. So it's a weird climate right now. Trump says that he's going to send troops over to Portland, which is just not too far from here. And, obviously that's all, it's all for optics, they're not there specifically to cause issues, but they know that the best protesters come from Portland, the ones that burn shit down, the ones that don't take shit, they are in Portland. And, it's causing chaos for chaos purposes. Maybe it's to hide some other things. Who knows? Maybe somebody's trying to cover some stuff up. I don't know. And so, you know, you have like the mainstream comedy, you have what's happening in the local scene, you have what's happening in the climate. In personal life, you know, I mean, you know, the first couple weeks at school for my daughter was pretty tough, but really tough. You know, just some stuff that was just really, really hard to deal with. But I feel like now we kind of got it under control a little bit. But man, those first 2-3 weeks of the year, oof, it was hard. And then, you know, we got some other stuff going on in our home, you know, some people that are sick that need to get better. And it's just hard. It's really hard to write and be funny, continue to do this stuff. And then, I mean, it's just hard enough to just show up, you know? And it's like by the time I make the time to get out to Tacoma or whatever, I haven't really written anything new. I've maybe written like 1 or 2 jokes, and it's just not enough. And I don't know. I like to, where am I at here? 50 minutes. 50 minutes. I'm just talking nonstop. You know, I haven't taken any drugs. I'm just me tonight. I just have a lot to say. All right. So this is where, I don't know, maybe some people might get upset, but I'm just going to say what I have to say. You know, right now I'm not exactly happy with the way things are going. I mean, personal life and also comedy, my stand-up comedy. I feel like I am a really good joke writer. No BS. I write great jokes. And the reason I know I write great jokes is because I can go anywhere and tell that joke to one person and they will laugh. And that's how I know it's a good joke. You know, sometimes I write jokes that are good, but only comedians will get it. Sometimes I write jokes that are good that only I will get. But I'm a pretty good joke writer. And you know, I've had some really great sets. I've had some great performances, but I would say honestly, maybe 1, 2, 3 times I've had a real good, just hardcore, just belly laugh. The whole room is dying. You know, most of the time my jokes are like, ha ha, ha, and then move on to the next one. You know, my joke style, you know, I kind of feel like I'm a punk band trying to play punk songs at an indie show or something like that. You know, everybody is there for this specific style, and everybody's there to support the things that they like. And then this freaking crazy bleached-haired 40-year-old California guy comes out and says his jokes about Alec Baldwin or, you know, funeral homes or whatever. So I feel like, you know, I figured that out. I figured out how to do that. I figured out how to write a good joke. But I know, to the standard that I love comedy and the standard that I love, that I want to be, you know, I'm not there yet, and I haven't put in the time or the effort, you know, and I just feel like more than ever, now is the time to just kick back and not do much, you know. Not saying that I'm like quitting comedy or anything like that, but I think that after the show on the 8th, I'm not gonna go out of my way to do any mics. You know, I have a lot of things that I've been thinking about lately, because before I was a comedian, I was a musician and a photographer. And I mean, 25 years ago, I was editing little movies with my friend JK on his Sony his Sony desktop computer, you know, plugging a Firewire mini DV camera into Firewire and editing videos with Windows Movie, well, not even Windows Movie, like Sony Vegas, you know. I mean, over the years, I've made a lot of these little films. I made a short film that I entered in a contest with my friends. It's like the fight scene. Back when I first moved here in 2019, I did a vlog on YouTube that got a lot of views. You know, I got like up to 3,000 subscribers, and the view. I mean, my first video got like 14,000 views. You know, it's moving from California to Washington. And, you know, I don't want to follow everybody's rules. You know, I don't want to just do the same crap that everybody else is doing, you know, like, oh, I'm just going to keep putting up clips of crowd work until maybe somebody notices it and I go viral, or I keep putting up clips of my stand-up, or I make these stupid little talking to the camera videos where I just give my 2 cents on something. I don't want to do that, all right? Like, I just think honestly, I think it's a little pathetic to see these people chasing these trends, trying to go viral. Like, and I'm guilty of it too. I post clips, you know, but again, I'm not posting clips thinking they're going to go viral. I'm just posting clips to share it to people that might see it, that might watch the podcast. There in no way, shape, or form do I feel like anything I put out is viral quality, because I know that I still have a lot more to say and I have a lot more to do. You know, I don't want to do something that makes me unhappy, right? So I don't want to just keep going to open mics and doing the same old jokes and hope that maybe something happens one day. Like, I want to write some new stuff, and I want to, just kind of pour myself into some of my other hobbies for a little bit, you know, just to, I don't know, just to kind of reset. You know, my whole life, I've always wanted to make a movie, you know, like, and I don't know if that's something I'm going to do this year, but I know that there is a pretty prestigious film festival that happens in Seattle every year. I know that they have multiple categories, you know, short film, long form. And with the way things have come with technology, it's like, I feel like I don't need all the other crap that everybody has, you know, like, again, moving back to the whole punk thing. I mean, like, literally, I do this podcast with very cheap equipment, and somehow it ends up looking better and sounding better than most of the other podcasts in this area. And that's not a knock on them. It's just, I care about it more. You know, I care about everything that I do. Like, I don't want to be mediocre. I don't want to put out stuff that I'm not proud of. You know, I'm literally the most average person in the world. All right. White male, medium income, 6 feet, 175 pounds, married, straight, like one kid. Like, I'm so average, it's it's painful, so that's not what I want. I don't want that. I don't want to come across as that, I don't want to do that. So maybe following my own instinct is not necessarily the best choice when it comes to like trying to get views or trying to go viral but I don't care, like, seriously, it's life is very short, and don't waste your time doing things that make you unhappy. And I love comedy. I just feel like I got to follow my gut right now. And it just seems like right now, like, nothing significant is going to change in the next 2 months, like whether I show up to Tacoma or Emerald City or not, nothing is going to change. But what can change is I can use that time to create a bunch of content, and then when I am recharged and ready to do stand up again, then I will, then you'll see what I'm gonna do. But yeah, I got a lot of crazy ideas. I mean, I'm gonna continue to do podcasting, of course, and I got a lot of video ideas too for you. So I'm gonna just stick to YouTube. Like, I'm just gonna get off of Instagram, get off of Facebook, and I don't even really do anything on TikTok, and Reddit. Reddit's probably the worst one because it has all those terrible things that are going on in the world. Reddit is the number one place to find that. So, I'm gonna just go back to, find the things that I like that are fun and funny. And, like I have ideas for a comedy set, right? But every idea I have, I don't put in the work or the time for it. So it's like I write 1 to 2 new jokes about my daughter instead of like writing a whole 10 to 15 minutes about my daughter. So that's what I'm trying to do. All right. It's I'm going against the grain, it's gonna do what I want to do, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Shoot, we did it, right? Like exactly an hour. That was a lot of talking. So thanks for joining me in the garage at the Simp Studios. And yeah, come see the show Wednesday, October 8th at Central Saloon. You can get the tickets at Trip Sitters Comedy at tripsitterscomedy.eventbrite.com. And I think that's it. So we'll see you next time. Episode 60.
Rising up in the comedy scene, he's a force to be reckoned. Comedy Simp, the podcast you can't resist. Stephen Michael James, the host you won't wanna miss. From Seattle to the world, his humor will persist. Join the fun, get ready to enlist. Spitting fire.